We love being able to go to the different high school, colleges, middle schools to live broadcast sporting events around the area. Georgia Alabama Sports Live appreciates all the fan support, but without a presenting sponsor like Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC and Opelika, none of this would be possible. So we want to say thank you so much. Go to glennsmith.com. That is right, glennsmith.com. See all the inventory and see why people always say, get ready to smile. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC for being our presenting sponsor. Good evening, everyone. We're doing back-to-back. That's right. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show. We were live last night, and we're going to be doing live again tonight. These are going to be the only shows this week here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, but we got a good one here tonight. Got some great guests. We're presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Got my partner in crime, Rich Holdridge, producing the thing. How are you, Richard?
I'm doing great. Back-to-back nights. I cannot wait for today's show.
We're doing this because we got some special guests. We got a guy that has more knowledge than me, Richard, DJ Jones, Hoppy, Jack Patterson, Tony Reese, Rex Castillo. I'm naming about 9 different guys that are in this area that cover sports. This guy's got more experience, more knowledge than any of us combined, and that is Steve Holman, the play-by-play announcer for Atlanta Hawks. We'll have him on in just a second. The legendary, the voice, or as Trey Young calls him, voice. And then we also have Greg Mathis of the Brookstone Cougars, who just won a state championship last night, first time in school history. So we'll talk with him. We've been talking with him these last couple of weeks, and they finally got it done. So now Glenwood, Calvary, and Brookstone are all state champions around our area. Richard, I'm excited about this next guest. And then also, after we do Greg Mathis, after we talk to Steve Holman, we're going to drop our ratings, final high school baseball ratings of the year. And I've got an interesting one. You're going to like it. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Tag, like, tell everyone that we are live right now here on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page and YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and get into it with our next guest. This guy, again, I say that every time I have him on. Back when the GAB Radio Talent Institute, I thought I was a somebody in 2017, and one of the people that we got to meet many people in the industry, but of course my favorite, and I still have the picture right now in my phone, is with this next guy, the voice of the Atlanta Hawks, legendary Steve Holman. Thank you so much for joining the program.
Thank you, Thrift. Thank you. Just did that again last week. We had the Georgia Talent Institute in town.
Yeah,
and they were all in at our flagship station, 92.9. They all came in.
Yeah, that's the only reason I brought it up, because I saw the pictures and looked like you're always dropping nuggets to all the young and up-and-coming broadcasters. So that myself and everyone else that you have touched, reached, or gave advice to, we are always appreciative. And we're appreciative of your time here today. And we're going to talk some NBA. We'll start with the Atlanta Hawks, and then we'll go into what's happening around the league. We are in the conference finals. Can't believe that the season's gone by that fast. But let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks. We talked about, when me and DJ talked with you when we did the Sports Visions radio show last week, when the Hawks got the number 1 overall pick. Now, a week later, I don't know if you've done some research on who potentially they could get, or do you think they should trade it? What's your mindset right now with the Hawks getting the number 1 pick? And I feel like they have a lot of talent, and they can make some noise here.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. Like we said last week when I was on, it's something that doesn't happen very often, that you get that number 1 pick, especially if you're not the worst team in the league. And poor Detroit, they've had 2 years in a row now where they've been shuffled down to number 5, which, they're not too thrilled about. But to get that number 1 pick, I mean, it leaves so many opportunities on the floor there that you can trade it. You can move to another part of the draft, maybe get a couple more picks, maybe just take that pick, which a lot of people say just take the pick. Don't overthink it. Don't try to outsmart yourself or do anything. Just, take the best guy that's out there and move forward.
I'm just going to say this, Steve, and if you can call me hot take, you can tell me to shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a young buck. But I'm going to throw this out there to you because this is immediately what I did after finding out the Hawks got the number 1 overall pick is what if there is a scenario, and I threw this to Richard too, that they do a sign and trade with Paul George for DeJounte Murray. So you get Paul George in. Then you trade that number 1 pick, maybe DeAndre Hunter, maybe another player to the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets send Mikal Bridges to New York, and New York sends us Julius Randle. Now you got Randle, you got Paul George, you got Trae Young, you got Capella, you got Okongwu. I mean, I feel like that's probably wishful thinking. But if something like that does happen, would you be surprised, or is that's a little far-fetched?
I think it probably is, but I could get you in touch with Landry if you want, Thrift, and you could propose all that to him.
Yeah, there we go. When talking about this Atlanta Hawks team, and now a year and a half under Quinn Snyder, do you feel like that if this team was fully healthy and he had a full roster to really delve into, that it would have turned out a little bit differently than the way it did this year?
Yeah, I mean, the injuries were a problem, certainly, and now they've been a problem for a lot of teams in the playoffs here. And, look at the Knicks, all the problems they had. And it's just every team has had something, and Porzingis is out for the first couple of games of that series. And it's just one after another. But we did have an inordinate amount of injuries, that's for sure, that really put a cramp in our style for the year. There were a bunch of other things, though. I think the Hawks would look back on it and think, there were some games, especially early in the year, that they lost that they, look back on now and kick themselves. And if they had just won 3 or 4 more games, they would have been in the regular playoffs and not had to deal with that play-in thing. But that's all water under the bridge right now. And, you just move forward from that and hope that guys stay healthy and do the right thing as far as the draft is concerned and move forward from that, go to summer league, see how these young guys do, and then get ready for a new season. And it's right around the corner. I mean, it seems like a long way away, but the next thing it's going to be the end of September, and it's going to be time to have training camp. And, we're going to have the draft on the 26th of June, big party at State Farm Arena for the public at that. I hope everybody shows up for that because it is kind of a once in a lifetime thing, I think, to get that draft. And we certainly all hope that we're not in the lottery again. I hope this is the last time that we're ever in the lottery, because that means you haven't done as well as you wanted to do to get into that lottery. But if you did get in and you get the number 1 pick, take advantage of it, move forward from there. And as far as everything else that, the rumors and the trades and all the stuff that's going to happen or at least be talked about this summer, I mean, that's one of the things, Landry, Kyle, and Tony and all those guys that are in charge of that, those are all decisions that they have to make. And luckily for the old radio announcer, I just wait until they say who we have on the team. And then I broadcast the games, starting in October.
Steve, I kind of feel like the Atlanta Hawks traded away 3 first-round picks to get DeJounte Murray. They wanted another superstar to play alongside Trae Young. Both players averaged over 20 points a game. DeJounte Murray is a good two-way player, a good all-star. But can DeJounte Murray and Trae Young coexist together? I think that if they do get a big man in this draft, like an Alex Sarr, that could be the missing piece, and they could make it work.
Yeah, Richard, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. They had a whole year together. There were some nights that it clicked and it was great. And then there were other nights, one guy was hurt, the other guy was hurt, and they never really got on the floor together all that much because of all these injuries and such. But, I think it was worth a shot to get DeJounte. They wanted to bring in some help for Trae. And, and it certainly, before the season started, everybody was so excited about it. And they're both good guys. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, they're both great kids. They both can play. We know that. While Trae was out, we won some games with DeJounte, kind of had it going there a little bit. Then when Trae was back, we had things going with him too. And DeJounte didn't play. So, those are part of the questions that we have. And that they're going to have to think about, that Landry, Kyle, and Tony, and all of them are going to have to, put their heads together and figure out. I know the scouts and everybody is going to be, they'll all be coming in the next couple of weeks, and they'll be having their big meetings at the Hawks practice facility. And, they've already looked at hours of tape, I'm sure, and they've had guys out at different venues to watch players in person, watch some of the European guys in person. I'm sure they've done all of their due diligence on the Sara kid here. And, if he's the one, that's the one they'll take. So I've watched a lot of his YouTube videos. I'd never really seen him before because I don't follow the draft picks that much. I don't watch the college basketball very much at all. But I do think this kid is, he's kind of the real deal from what they say. And, we'll just see how it shakes out. And, that next few weeks is going to go by very quickly till June 26th.
Yeah, it's going to be here before you know it. And, already the aggregators are out there, the people that are putting out that Trae Young and DeJounte Murray hate each other. Then they come out and say, no, they don't. So it's always something. They always like making up stuff, don't
like
they?
I say, hey, believe me, I'm with them all the time. It's like they're both great kids and they both get along. And, over the years, there have been teams that guys are great guys. They get along well, but sometimes it doesn't work on the floor. Chemistry is part of it, a big part of it. And you have to have the right chemistry, and it just doesn't involve those two. It involves the whole team. You have to have the right people in the right spots. And I think that's something that Quinn Snyder has been working on since he got here, 20 games in last year and all last season, to work on that chemistry and get the guys that he wants in there as part of his plan too. So there's a lot that goes into all this. And, when we won that lottery, it all became a lot more pressure on that, on the front office to make the right kind of pick and do the right thing. And like I said, right at the beginning, just pick the best guy. I think sometimes you overthink things sometimes. And, this and that, people are throwing this at you, that at you. And I'm sure all 29 other teams have been calling and ringing the phone off. Well, we used to have on the hook, but now off the handheld phone, So I think everybody's been calling. So they've been busy that way. And like I say, these are very, very important decisions that have a long way to go in shaping the future of this team and shaping the future of the front office, really.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's going to be an interesting offseason. All right, let's talk some NBA as a whole, and we're going to have you on here, I know, on Sports Visions in the next couple of weeks, and, of course, this show as well, Steve, so you're going to be seeing, hopefully, our face a lot, and we always appreciate your time. I do got to ask about, let's just do the conference finals right now, and we'll start with the Eastern Conference. You made mention about the injuries. Jimmy Butler didn't play. Joel Embiid had a knee injury. The Knicks were trying to pull people off the street. It seems like the Celtics have everything in place to make it to the NBA Finals. The question I'm asking you is not, are the Celtics going to win? Because I think you're going to pick them. I think everyone is probably going to pick them against the Pacers. Is that, did they go through a tough enough stretch to be able to beat a Minnesota or Dallas who had play a lot better teams, in my opinion, in the Western Conference? Do you think Boston has what it takes to win an NBA championship this year?
Well, everybody says they do, and they certainly do on paper, but the Porzingis thing, that could become a problem for them. They say he's going to miss at least the first two games, which to me, when they say somebody's going to miss the first two games, that means they could miss all of the games. That doesn't mean necessarily he's going to be back for game 3. But they have had a pretty charmed life this year as far as injuries and everything. They have kind of breezed through the whole schedule. They won 64 games. They had it pretty easy to get to where they are right now in that Eastern Finals. They're 10.5-point favorites in game 1. And I think they're a minus 1,000 favorite to win the whole series against the Indiana Pacers. But the Pacers are tough. They score a lot of points. They push the ball up the floor. We saw it against the Knicks. The ball was barely through the basket. They were throwing it up the floor. They came barreling out after every basket. And I think they're going to do that again with the Celtics. And, the Celtics ended up losing to Miami when Miami hit like 23 3-pointers. So, there's always a night when you can do that. The Pacers are coming off the greatest shooting performance in the history of the playoffs the other day. And so who knows? I mean, they can, and the Celtics shoot a ton of those threes. I mean, I've said all year that if there's going to be a problem for the Celtics, it's going to be those nights when they don't make those 3-pointers. We saw it here 2 nights late in the season when the Hawks beat them 2 times in a row when they were here on that Monday and Thursday thing. They were in town all week, and we came out and beat them. So they're not totally unbeatable, and I don't know if anybody learned their lesson on Indiana during that Knicks series. I mean, that was kind of gross the way they all just piled on and were cheering for the Knicks, that 7th game. I mean, nobody gave the Pacers. They didn't even mention the Pacers half the time. I mean, you had Stephen A. Smith on there bloviating about how good the Knicks were, and he had Spike Lee on with him. And, I mean, those kind of things, people kind of lose faith in the media that way when those kind of things happen. And so I don't write off Indiana at all. I think, they've got a great chance, I think. And, all it takes is one, you steal one game out of the first 2 in Boston, and then you never know what's going to happen after that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and makes me
want.
The
Celtics have all the pressure too. The Celtics have all the pressure right now because they have to win a championship. They're not like the Pacers have had a great year, and even they should be playing with what we call house money now, right, for this series because they've accomplished more than anybody thought they would. So I think that they will play kind of loosey-goosey in this series. They'll go out there and just let it all hang out and see what happens.
Are you taking the Celtics though, from just your background?
Yeah, you'd probably be crazy not to take the Celtics,
but you can see an upset for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't. I wouldn't be totally shocked if the Pacers won the series, especially if they can win one of these first 2. That sets it up because Indiana, they have a great crowd there. I mean, their crowd is very knowledgeable. Number one, it's Indiana. It's all about basketball and. It's going to be a wild weekend there in Indianapolis too, with the Indianapolis 500. Plus this, I don't know how they're handling all the hotel rooms in Indianapolis. They have a lot because they have a lot of conventions, but it's going to be wild this weekend with both of those big events happening.
All right, Steve, let's talk about the Western Conference. The Dallas Mavericks 2 times in the last 3 years, knocking off the number 1 seed OKC Thunder, but the Minnesota Timberwolves. Their backs against the wall, down by 20, Game 7 on the road against the defending champion Denver Nuggets. What a defensive performance. I mean, this is the Western Conference Finals that I'm excited to see because of the star power of Luka and the Ant-Man. But what is the matchups looking like? And can Minnesota get to the NBA Finals with their defensive stars shutting down Luka and Kyrie?
Well, I think they can. They can definitely make it, and I think they've got a great chance at it. The only thing that might hold Minnesota back a little bit is the lack of experience in the playoffs.
Right.
Although they have gained some this time, but they're so young, and they've never been there before. And Dallas has been there, but I think Minnesota. They really have that picking up Gobert was a big thing for them, and that whole trade really, it hurt them some. It hurt, the Utah, but I think that they can play with them and they can win against Dallas. I don't think there's any question about that. The only thing is the experience that's something that kind of, I think about, and it bothers me a little bit with Minnesota, but they play like they don't care. They play like they have no cares in the world. I mean, they play like they're not scared at all of the situation that they've been in and the one that they're going to be in starting tomorrow. So we'll see. But I like Minnesota and the Ant-Man. I'm going to root for him, certainly. And, it's just talk about ping pong balls. If there had been a couple others that bounced a different way, we would have had him. And we would have been number 4 in that draft instead of number 6.
Yeah.
And things would have been different right then, too.
Yeah, I agree with you. We were very close for the Ant-Man being at home, doing what he's doing now with Trae Young. That would have been pretty incredible. Last question for you, Steve. And again, thank you so much for your time. Do you like where the NBA's at now that we see LeBron? There's no Kyrie. I mean, no LeBron, no Steph Curry. It's the young guys that are taking on. Even Jokic, who's been dominant. He's not in the Final Four. It's Luka. It's Ant-Man, Tyrese Halliburton, Tatum, and Brown. I know they've been there over like 6 times in the last 8 years, but talk about the young talent. Do you like where the league's at right now in terms of young?
I do. I think they're in a great place right now. I mean, we all said the same thing. We all panicked when Magic and Larry were going to go away, and then when Michael Jordan comes and then he goes and everybody's, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with Michael Jordan gone? And then LeBron comes along. So LeBron leaves, and now you've got these other great players that have come along. And, Ant-Man could become the face of the NBA before too much longer. He seems like a great kid and plays hard and has not had any trouble. So, I mean, it's I think the league is in a great place right now. I love watching the games and broadcasting the games.
No doubt about it. And watching the energy and the passion. So Celtics, Timberwolves, and you got Celtics winning it all. If I had to make you pick someone, Steve, who would be your finals pick in winning it all?
Well, I think I think Minnesota or Dallas could beat the Celtics. I really do. I think they both have a great chance at it.
Yeah.
Maybe even so Minnesota more than Dallas.
Yeah.
Because Minnesota plays defense and they could lock down the Celtics. The only thing that bothers me is Mike Conley. He's not very big, and he's not getting any younger. As far as trying to guard those, who are they going to match up with against the Celtics? That's the thing. If they get that far and have to figure out who's going to play against who and who he's going to guard, so those would be one of the questions that they have. But other than that, I think they've got a great chance.
Yeah, and think about this: if Porzingis doesn't play, the size could be a huge differential problem for Minnesota.
Like I say, he might not. I mean, we don't know. I mean, when they say something like he's out for at least the first 2 games, that to me, that doesn't bode too well for his chances of coming back.
Yeah, and then if you got to bang with someone like Minnesota, you better be at least 80 or 90% too.
Well, he's got that calf injury, and that's what Giannis had.
Yep.
And after the series was over, Doc kept saying that, well, he's very close. He's working hard. He's almost ready. And he never was. And in fact, Giannis, after the series was over, they asked him about it. And he said, no, I was never close to coming back. So this Porzingis thing might be the same type of deal.
Yeah, that is a great point. It's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the real voice. He's who I aspire to be. I'm not going to live up to him, but if I can be half of what he's accomplished and half of who he is as a broadcaster, I will be happy with my career. Thank you so much, Steve, with your time. Look forward to talking to you real soon.
All right, you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it as always.
That is Steve Holman, the legendary play-by-play announcer for the Atlanta Hawks. All right, Richard, let's take a break. When we come back from break, we're going to have another great guest on. It's Greg Mathis, and then we're hitting our ratings. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show here on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Be right back after this. You're watching right now the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show that is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. We'll be right back after this.
Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox. Discounted up to $6,500 off. Chevy's full-size pickup truck, the powerful Chevy Silverado, is up to $12,000 off. And big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall. Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
And we're smiling right now for sure as we are just having an awesome time. And thank you again to Steve Holman. He made me make second guess. I said 5 or 6 for Pacers, Richard. But I can see it, if the Celtics, who gave up the 23 threes to the Heat, they lost game 2 to the Cavs. I can easily see this team, getting lackadaisical without Porzingis. This could maybe be an interesting series. I don't think it will, but I would not be surprised by it. And then, of course, I'm going to listen to anything Steve has to say. But, Richard, let's bring on the next guy. I looked at him, and I told him straight to his face that he was going to be a state champion. He says he's got to take it one game at a time. Unfortunately, because the weather didn't want me to be great, I would have had the pleasure of being the announcer on the last out of Glenwood Calvary and Brookstone State Championship. I did get to call one of the state championship games for Brookstone, game 1, so I felt good. At least I got to do that. But I didn't get to do game 2 yesterday, and a 9-5 victory in sweep over number 1 seed First Presbyterian Day. It is a guy that has just done wonders in 2 years with the Brookstone Cougars. Greg Mathis, this is 3 straight weeks, and you said, hey, I'll see you in Macon. Now you're seeing us right here as a state champion. How about that, Coach?
Well, I'm keeping with the show. I'm getting ready to smile. Haven't had a chance to smile, but now I'm ready to smile with like your Glenn Smith. So, it's been a lot. It's been a long season, but we're ready to smile over here at Brookstone. It's been 43 years since we've been able to smile. So,
yeah,
it was a lot of smiles going around the school today.
No doubt, Coach. Unbelievable run. I said this. I was looking at the Glenwood and the Calvary runs, and they were pretty impressive, especially who they had to beat in the state championship. Lee Scott's a good team for Glenwood. Kings Academy was a good team for Calvary. But the fact that you beat Strong Rock, the defending champions, who's a great team, Mountain DeSales is not too shabby, and then this First Presbyterian Day team, who I'm going to be honest, and it was a different team. I honestly think if they played each other today, I would probably lean towards the Gators. But early in the season, First Presbyterian beat them 11-1 and like 7-3 or 8-3. They took them to the woodshed. They are a really good program. Let's talk about the state championship. Taft Middleton goes that game 1 and had a couple of, maybe a few shaky innings, but the offense was incredible. He goes 6-7 innings. They win 7-3. You bring in Neal to close it out. Talk about that win and then what's set up to be a great, game 2. And I guess I'll set it up too for the listening audience. Taft Middleton, your ace. He pitched game 1, did a great job. First Presbyterian Day threw their number 2. So they left the guy that was 9-0 with a 0.56 ERA to throw on Monday, and you scored more runs than you did against their number 2. So talk about what your team was able to do against their number 1, and what'd you learn from your team in this series, Coach?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. Of course, the Bryant kid, the left-handed kid through the first game, he's number 2, but he was very good number 2. And,
yep.
We always are going to throw Taft in game 1. We like to come out of the chute and try to set the, tempo. And, the guy's 12-1, got an ERA 1.4. I mean, so we feel pretty comfortable with him on the mound. And he was strikeout-wise, he was not, per se himself, but he only gave up 4 hits. So, he's kept us there, and then we swung the bats a little bit. Like I said, I was just looking back at the game. Everybody on our team had at least 1 hit, except we had 8 guys that had at least 1 hit. So nobody did too much, and then nobody did too little. So that game right there, the first game, was really a total team effort. And then it just showed me that I've been saying all along that the bottom of the lineup, when you get that lineup turnover, it's really, really good to get, to have get the guy down on the bottom. They mean so much to this team. And then, Taft, like I said, he's been good all year.
Coach, this team has been dominant from start to finish, offensively and great pitching. I mean, it really starts with your senior leaders, Taft Middleton, Cole Stanzel, and Madden Dismuke. I mean, they were the top 3 players that led the team in hits. But you also had some young players like Brendan Neal stepping up, not only on the mound, but also behind the plate as well. And he led the team on the base paths as well. Just that mixture of younger players and your seniors, how did it all come to fruition? How did this team gel together with the schedule you faced to run through the GIAA and eventually become champions?
Well, one good thing is that it was very competitive at practice. We scrimmaged a lot, and these guys knew that in order to get on that field in the game, you had to do something in practice, so that made everything very competitive. And then we had a good group of freshmen come in here, Brendan Neal's good and going to get better. We had a guy that we didn't even have to throw in the playoff series, who's been our number 3 guy in the region, Ben Ivy, I mean, he went 4-0 as a number 3 game starter. As you know, we did region 3-game series, but we didn't. That's what I told him. I said, Ben, got some bad news. You didn't get to pitch, but then I got some good news. You didn't have to pitch, so that meant we were sweeping. But we feel like with the way that Shanu Kim threw in the it all started back in the regions. He hit a little bump right before the region playoffs, but play games, I mean, and when he was on, he was good. And we feel like next year with him and Brennan Neal and Ben Ivy, we got some other young guys coming up that have been throwing in JV. We feel like our pitching is going to be in pretty good shape, but it's going to be hard to replace this senior group. You talked about Stancil and of course, obviously Taft and Madden Dismute, but Taylor Hancock.
Yeah,
like I said, he started out the season batting 150, and we have really took off since we put him in the cleanup spot. And then we got Brett Novaleski, who was actually our number 1 pitcher last year. And he didn't get to throw this year because he started out the year hurt. He had pulled hamstring for the first month of the season, but he came back and hit about 380, I think, for us. So, overall through the lineup, I think we ended up hitting right around 350 as a team, which when you do that, you're going to give yourself a chance to win a lot of games, especially when you have the type of pitching that we have.
Elite pitching, and it's an incredible feat what Brookstone was able to accomplish. By the way, just throwing this in perspective, Mace McCrane batted 500. I think he had 9 home runs. He was incredible. He's also one of the best pitchers on that Glenwood team. Then you got Bailey Thorne, who batted about 500, hit about 13 home runs. He was incredible for Calvary. And then you throw Taft Middleton in that. I take those 3 guys up against anybody in the state, anybody in the country, in my opinion. And it's incredible. And we'll talk about baseball as a whole because you've been around for a long time, Coach, and you've seen a lot of great teams. You've been a part of a lot of great teams. But let's talk about this team going 28-5, beating Glenwood, beating Calvary, state champions, beating Pacelli, beating Columbus High, beating Harris County, Flint River, who came runner-up in 1A, Westfield, Heritage, who was a great team, made it to the Final Four. And then, of course, First Presbyterian Day. I put this schedule up against anyone. At the beginning of the year, you knew your team was going to be good, but did you expect to be dominant? There's a difference, Coach. Being pretty good and winning a state championship, you can be pretty good and win a state championship and get hot at the right time. I don't think that was the case for this team. I think this was dominant from start to finish. Do you agree that this is one of the best teams you've ever been a part of, and it was one of the more dominant teams in our area and we've seen in a long time?
Yeah, when I was at Columbus High with Coach Howard, I mean, we were on that run during the 2010, 11, and 12, and now those were some nationally ranked teams. Those teams, nationally
they were good.
Ranked. Carter, J.T. Phillips, Josh Lester, Jordan Weems, those guys, and my son played first for them. I mean, those teams were nationally ranked. But, I mean, on the scale and on the level that we play, and, I mean, 28-5, it doesn't matter who, if you can go 28-5, that's pretty outstanding. But, we've just played everybody that was on the schedule, and that's all you can do, and our strength of schedule was right up there with everybody. So, I think this is one of the better teams that's been around here in a while. I know it's one of the better teams that's been at Brookstone, and we've had some good teams here. But, this team was just resourceful, found a way. I mean, like I said, game 2, we got our number 9 hitter, Will Turner, comes up. He gets 3 hits. I mean, he drove in a couple of runs. He got a big hit with 2 outs. He got on base with 2 outs, which enabled Taft to knock him in. So, I mean, it's just been a combination of things. And, I think this team should rank right up there with some of the better teams that have been around here. And Lord knows there's been some good teams in this area. Baseball, my brother came down from North Carolina.
I got to meet him. Yep.
He said, man, there's just so many good baseball teams because he watches your games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. He looks at the streams and he says, he was on that first state champion team at Columbus High in 1984 with Frank Thomas and Bubba Hall and that bunch. Baseball in Columbus Phoenix City just never dries up. That's what he said. He said it never dries up. There's talent. There's always talent in this area. And so, of course, we always want to compare, just like in basketball, we got the LeBrons and the Michael Jordan guys, and it's largely depends on what your age is. You get a little bias. But I think this team, like I said, I've been looking at a lot of teams, and pitching wise, and hitting wise, this team stacks up with some of the better teams that I've seen.
Richard?
Coach, as you get ready for the off season, what does the team plan on doing? Is there going to be off season workouts, or are you hosting baseball camps? How is the team just getting prepared for next season?
Well, that's one of the things that we really incorporated was the off-season workouts, and the kids bought in. And I've had several coaches, we work out at 6:30 in the morning, 3 days a week. So, you have to have some dedication, and we work out with the football guys. So, I've had several coaches say, God, y'all look good in a uniform. And they say that as a compliment. And we'll just keep doing that. We're going to have off-season workouts. We'll have an off-season throwing program. We'll probably do a camp here or there because we got all the young kids that came to the game. They want to do a camp, be around the players. But we'll just keep doing what we've been doing, keep working hard and try to improve. And, of course, a lot of these guys, Taft Middleton, he's leaving Friday to go play in the Prospect League in Illinois, which is a league for possible draft pick guys. So he's going Friday, and I think he's playing like a 50-60 game schedule against some of the top players in the country, and to see if he could possibly get drafted. So, baseball has become a year-round thing, So that's what we'll do. And another big thing we'll do is we'll get all our 8th graders up here that are going to be 9th graders, and we'll just try to show them the way we do things around here. We'll do some workouts and some practices, and that way we won't have so much information to give them when they come back.
Brookstone Cougars ranked in Georgia State 12th. That's pretty impressive because Max Preps does all classifications, GAPS, GIAA, set all 1 through 7A, and the GHSA, and Brookstone's ranked number 12. That is pretty incredible, and ranked top 30 nationally. You talk about nationally, Brookstone is up there just like Glenwood, Calvary, and Central. I know they came up short, but just incredible run, and we were glad to be a part of it. I was glad to see. We did 4 or 5 Brookstone games this year, and it was awesome to see your teams. Coach, you're just a great guy. I really don't think I've met one person that said anything negative about you. And I got to throw this out there too, because my dad, Glenn Barringer, used to play softball, and men's softball used to be a big deal around here. And trust me, I know the stories. And then it just hit me because yesterday, Bobby Brown, downtown Bobby Brown, commented on Sports Visions, and he says, because we're giving updates, your score updates on the show as y'all are playing First Presbyterian Day, and he talks about how you batted cleanup against the great, right behind the great Charles Wright, and then you got DeMarini and that incredible. And again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I know you do, Coach. I'm talking about the listening audience. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ask somebody. There's somebody in Columbus to talk about the golden era of men's league softball. But everybody I've talked to says you were nasty there. You were nasty when you played at Kendrick, when you played in college. And now you're a great coach. So I'm trying to bring it full circle, Coach. You can talk about that too. But the question I want to ask, did you think that this was going to be in the cards for you, taking over a Brookstone program and being an excellent coach and now winning a state championship? Did you ever think that was going to be in the cards for you after having such a great playing career?
Well, you just don't never know. I was very fortunate. I got to play for 3 legendary coaches in this area, and I got to play with some great players as far as baseball. Jimmy Lester, he's a scout, just Josh's dad, and me and him grew up playing together, and we played Little League, Babe Ruth, high school, junior college, and college together. And not many guys get to do that. And then, of course, in high school, I played for Bobby Howard, Hall of Fame guy. And then I played in junior college for B.R. Johnson. at CVCC, who was there before Adam took over. And then I was fortunate to play for Charlie Ragsdale over at Columbus State. Well, it was Columbus College back then. So, you know, I was fortunate to play for those guys, and I try to take something from every one of them. They all had great qualities, and yeah, I mean, you know, when you get into coaching, you dream about things that like what happened yesterday, and you know, I was part of those Columbus High teams as assistant head coach, but you know, to actually be the head guy and to win one, that's a little bit different. But no, you have no way of knowing. You know, I had a lot of fun playing softball, travel around a lot. You know, when you can't hit a baseball no more, they used to tell you go hit a softball. So that's what we used to do. We had a bunch of guys that used to enjoy being around each other and still had some competitiveness to them. So, but yeah, I owe a lot to my coaches and a lot of good people around Columbus, Georgia, Phoenix City area that believed in me and gave me a chance. Brookstone 2 years ago, had a quick turnover and they didn't know what they were going to do. And I was the assistant coach, and they said, asked me, Marty Lester was the headmaster then. And he called me in and he said, we got a lot of people want you to do the job. And I said, well, I'll give it a shot. So everything's worked out good. You don't ever know what's going to happen.
That's incredible, Coach. And I do want you to talk about the Brookstone family, and then we'll talk about your players. We'll wrap up the interview talking about them in a little bit. But talk about you made mention him hiring you. Anybody else, Rance Gillespie, or any of the other administrators that have just made your job easier because you can focus more on the field stuff. Who do you want to give some shout outs to that were integral part in this season and then bringing you to Brookstone and allowing you to do your thing and be successful? Now you got to say championship ring.
Well, of course, obviously my coaches, you know, I've got a great coaching staff. I got a combination of, you know, younger guys. You got Jeremy Mack, Nate McConnell, you got Matt Dormany. And then you got I was fortunate this year to win a state championship with my two sons,
Wow.
Tyler and Camden Mathis helping me. And that's as big a thrill as anything. And then, of course, like I said, Marty Lester and Jimmy Messer, they were the coach and athletic director here, and they gave me a shot, and they've both texted me, and I'm very appreciative to them for believing in me. And then, of course, you know, Rance has been a great athletic director to me and given me all the support you could ever ask for. But the biggest thing is the Brookstone family or the Brookstone Nation, whatever you want to call it. You know, we had a little girl over in the pre-K, Emma Duke, that we wore the pink bands for, and we were supporting her. And that's the thing about Brookstone. It's one big family, or one small family, and everybody bonds together, whether it be for something like Emma Duke's going through or whether it be something like trying to win a state championship. So I was just very fortunate that God put me in this situation. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring my wife up. My wife is Herbert Green, the old basketball coach's daughter. Coach Green used to be at Columbus State. Lord, I miss him every day. He was like a dad to me. And but my wife understands what it takes to be a coach's wife. And she knows if you're going to be successful, you got to put the hours in. And she never complains because she grew up watching her dad do it. And Coach Green, of course, was very successful Hall of Fame basketball coach. So I'm very supportive of her. And then, of course, obviously the parents. If you got a bunch of parents that aren't getting on board in high school, you're in trouble. And we got great parents here at Brookstone. So, and then, of course, the kids. Had a great group of kids led by the seniors. But we're excited for next year. We feel like with the guys we have coming back, Lord knows you're not going to find another Taft Middleton out there. There's not, you know, and if he's out there, please feel free to come to Brookstone. But the thing is, you're not going to find one, but, you know, you're going to have to ask some of these other guys to step up. It's time for them. It's their time to shine now. Taft had his chance, and he took advantage of it. And, you know, time for Shanu to go 12-0 or 12-1, you know. So, but all we can do is keep working and try to get better and then see what happens.
Richard, before you ask that question, I feel like a buffoon. I should have done the same thing. I'm glad you brought it up talking about your wife. I should have asked the same thing to Steve and Tim, because I can only imagine how much time and dedication. It seems like every time we interview, you're always in the office. And I know that's every single coach. And for you to be successful, you got to have support of the wife. If you don't, it makes it hard on you. So knowing that she's there supporting you, allowing you to do your thing. I think that's awesome, Coach. I'm glad you brought that up. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, Coach, I just want to comment, like, the amount of games that we called on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. It started with the Border Wars, and we got to know you at high school baseball media days. And I feel that us going out there and really showcasing these players, because really these players deserve it. I mean, they have been put in the spotlight, but really, what does that mean to your staff and to your players that they're able to get this exposure that wouldn't normally be the case until they get into the playoffs? But we wanted to make sure to showcase these players during the regular season. But what does that mean to your program?
Well, you guys, I just want to thank you again. What you guys do has been a need. I talked to Coach Howard. He was, like I said, he was my high school coach, and we talk, and he watches this show, and he said, there has for so long been a need for what those guys are doing in high school sports. And I'm very appreciative. And, my parents my team mom will send this link out right when we get finished. And so you guys got a lot of guys supporting you, and you guys do a tremendous job. And it's just something that it's been a long need for, and you guys have filled that void, and you guys do a tremendous job. I know I personally, and I know my team thanks you for the support, because you guys have been, a big part of this ride. It's been a great ride, and you guys have been a big part of it.
Well,
and,
Coach,
we thank you a whole lot.
Well, Coach, again, I appreciate that. It means a lot, but
Coach,
what we do would not matter if there's not good teams. I can broadcast as many games as I want. I'm sorry, no one's watching a team that's not winning any games. They will tune in to watch a Taft Middleton or a legendary Greg Mathis, who has many players who played underneath him, either as assistant coach or head coach, whatever it may be. That's how we have become so successful. It is nothing to do with just me and Richard. I think we're pretty good at our job, but anyone can go and call a game. But having teams that are really good and having fan bases that are invested, like the Brookstone family, that is the reason why we do what we do. So again, I appreciate you, Coach. Unbelievable what we've seen from the Brookstone Cougars. 28-5, 6-0, did not lose a playoff game. Now that you've had, I would say, I guess about 24 hours, what was the initial thought, and what did you tell your team, especially those seniors, if you want to now, Coach, what they meant to you and what they meant to this program, bringing the first state championship in 43 years?
Well, of course, obviously, these guys know how our coaches and everybody feels about them. They're a special group. But the main thing we told them is, we had several different things. I had a former player off the 81 team come talk to us, Brad Bush, and he told us about the adversity. Their catcher broke his hand in the first game, so they had a sophomore catcher that had no experience, and they ended up winning in the third game. But one thing that we said, we watched we're big into movies. I'm a big history guy, so I took a clip from the movie Troy with Brad Pitt and them.
Yep.
And, of course, he's Achilles, and he's fighting that big guy. And the little boy comes up to him and says, "Hey, there's no way I would fight that guy. I'm too scared to fight that guy." And Achilles tells him, says, "That's why nobody will remember your name." So that was kind of our catch thing. You guys want everybody now should remember your name at Brookstone. So that was our thing. It's been a special group. They've been fun to coach, and I'm going to miss them. But, we got to get ready for next year, because nobody's going to wait around for us. Now we got a target on our back.
Yeah, no doubt, Coach. You went from being the hunting to now to being the hunted, as people are going to circle Brookstone for sure on their calendars. Incredible run, Coach. State champions. And this cements me, in my opinion, because, again, you talk about all those being associate head coach and the lead assistant during those incredible Columbus Eye years with Bobby Howard. You helped I think you were with AJ Keogh. Were you at Central for a little bit? You were there?
Actually, Coach Howard was the head coach. I was me and Kehoe. I did the hitters, he did the pitching, and then we had actually the new head coach at Opelika, Butler, was over there, and then we had Coach Howard's son. We had a great staff over there, so I've been blessed to be around a lot of good baseball people, and you know the Lord's blessed me with that, and I couldn't ever be more thankful, and especially for the people that have been in my life.
Well, Coach, we're appreciative. It's not a better guy I know around here. I said this about Tim and Steve, and now I can throw you in there. When I look at leader of men, someone that invests in kids' lives, I saw it with Coach Fanning. I saw how he, in the Game 3, Coach, decided to play a freshman who didn't have many at-bats at all because he believed in him. He decided to stick with his senior who was over in the last 15 at-bats. And he went 3 for 4 because Coach Fanning believed in him. Steve Smith, having guys that had injuries that didn't even get to play their career, but he made them feel a part of the team. Every one of those guys were crying. They wanted to do it for Steve. And I saw the same thing with your guys. It is unbelievable how much that y'all mean to them, and y'all do a great job putting guys at the next level, but more importantly, making them great men for years to come. And your investment in these guys is incredible. And I'm glad that you got a state championship. And I look forward to talking to you real soon, Coach. Thank you so much for your time. And go Cougars, man.
Yes, sir. Go Cougars. Thank you guys for everything. And that's what we get in this thing for. It ain't really the wins. We're trying to help these guys out become great men. So, you know, winning is great, but, you know, they got to be productive citizens too. So I think we got a bunch of great guys. You'll be hearing big things from them.
No doubt about it. Taft Middleton, Bailey Thorne. I'm just throwing these guys out. I'm sorry. And Mason McCrane. All three of those guys probably going to play Division I. I know Taft and Mason already are. I think they're both going to Auburn. And then you're looking at Bailey Thorne probably going to do something similar. So just showing you talents at an all-time high in this area. And by the way, Calvary joins the GIAA next year. So that's going to be a region opponent. Can't wait for it already. Sign me up, Coach. We'll be there.
Great bunch of coaches in this area. Great bunch of coaches.
And y'all all swear by each other. And that's why, again, I know it's y'all have rivals. And I know that when you're playing each other, you want to step on their throat. But in the end, you still cheer for them. And I know you talked to Steve. You made great comments about him, AJ, and of course, Coach Fanning. I got texts from Coach Fanning and Steve Smith asking about who won the Brookstone game. They were cheering for you. That means a lot. And I know it means a lot to you. Thank you so much, Coach. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks,
all right.
Coach.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
That is Coach Greg Mathis of the Brookstone Cougars. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, our final high school baseball ratings. I was rambling right there, Richard, but I'm sorry. These guys, man, Coach Mathis, Steve Smith, Tim Fanning, all these guys, especially in the baseball realm, they've been appreciative of us and allowing us to be a part of their runs. It means a lot, Richard. I know it meant a lot to you. You called several Brookstone games, and glad this guy got a state championship. We'll take a break. We'll be right back after this. You're watching right now the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live Show that is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. We'll be right back after this.
Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox. Discounted up to $6,500 off. Chevy's full-size pickup truck, the powerful Chevy Silverado, is up to $12,000 off. And big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall. Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Welcome back to the program. We're smiling, and now it's time. We are going to do our final high school baseball ratings, and we're going to throw that graphic up there. We, again, appreciate all the love and support we've had all year long. We're going to do – this is the only show we're going to do. This last show we're going to do this week. We don't have anything else planned on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. We'll throw up some old games you can go back and watch. Next week, we'll have an in-person live show we're going to do from the Beck Center. And we're going to talk about everything we accomplished this year as a company, Richard. It was – I know I use that word a lot, but it is incredible what we were able to do. I would have been happy, if we got 10, 12 games in football, 20, 30 games in basketball, 20, 30 games in baseball. We surpassed that by twofold. It's unreal. And it took dedication from guys like yourself, Richard, Chris Gates, Toygar, Rick Beach, Noah Shelton. And I know I'm leaving his name off from CVCC. You know what I'm talking about, Richard. Robert Edmonds. It's quickly. It was a great season, was it not?
It was definitely a great season. And shout out to our color guys who came in. The Carver baseball coach, Michael Long Jr.
Good point.
And also former Calvary baseball player, Jacob Brown. He helped me with some Calvary Christian games. Matthew White helped us on the broadcast.
Tyler Redmond.
Yeah.
Yeah,
these guys. A great team.
Unbelievable team and a great season. And we're going to have analytics and stats on what we were able to accomplish in year one. Next week's show, looking forward to it. And basically just a huge celebration is what next week's going to be, Richard, as it's been a year now with Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I remember I'm going on vacation next week, Richard, I think on Wednesday. I went vacation last year, and I went to Disney Resort, and I was trying to think, what am I going to name? What's the company going to be? And I was struggling. I was using vacation to come up with it. Of course, started talking with Dana Barker. And then one thing led to another. Georgia Alabama Sports Live came. So it will be a year next week. So I look forward to doing that show in person. And it'll be, Richard, I know you're going to be going out of town and you'll be here and there coming up in June, but it will be a good send-off live show. And it's not like the last thing we're going to do. Trust me, it's just the beginning of summer. But we're just trying to put a bow on this 2023-2024 season, because immediately after that, starting in June, it's already the 2024-2025 season, Richard. So we'll be moving on after that. But now let's get with it. Just throw them up there, Richard. Presented by Sports Visions. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live final top 10 high school baseball ratings. Number 10, Northside. Finished 10-17. Coach Jay Sparks. Excuse me, not Jay Sparks. His brother.
Sparks.
Say it again.
Steve Sparks.
Yes, Steve Sparks. Jay's the athletic director at CSU. But Northside had a decent season. Not what they did last year, but made the playoffs. And I think they obviously they're disappointed in the way 7 games under 500. But the fact they still made the playoffs, overcoming some injuries, I think that's great. By the way, Tracy Powell, I think, has just got named to be the head coach of the Northside Patriots. So Coach Powell, who's a longtime coach at Hardaway, now the head coach at Northside. So keep an eye on that. They'll be a team to reckon with next year. But great season for the Northside Patriots. And then tied with them is Smith Station. They didn't make the playoffs after making it to the Final Four. They also have a new head coach. Coach Ferry's, retiring after winning a state championship in 2015, making Final Fours, Elite Eights. Incredible career for him. But Smith Station Northside coming in at number 10.
Yes, the new head baseball coach for Smith Station is Wesley Bird.
Oh, so, nice job for Wesley Bird.
Yeah, good luck to him. They are losing Brandon McCrane. He's going to be playing at Auburn. But by the way, Brandon McCrane did get all honors for Chattahoochee Valley. But Smith Station in a tough region, and they had a good season. It's just that Auburn was able to beat Central twice, and they were able to get into the playoffs.
Coming in at number 9, I think they just made the playoffs, exceeded expectations. I'm telling you, the coach from Jordan, this guy is a bright star, and I see huge things, and I hope he sticks it out with Jordan, and hopefully they can make a deep playoff run. But the fact they went 14-10, top 3 in the region, made a playoff series, I think that's a great job for the Red Jackets.
Absolutely. They did lose in the first round in the playoffs to Toombs County, but just the fact that they got into the playoffs back-to-back years for Coach Lane, and the future is bright for Jordan. And let's get ready, because they're going to be in that region next season with all the schools in Columbus minus Northside.
Number 8, Harris County Tigers. They were a team that started like 1-8, 1-9. They were not a good baseball team, but Coach Tony Dimitri just kept sticking with them, kept grinding, come number 2 in the region, took 2 or 3 from McIntosh, did lose in the first round of the playoffs. But I thought what Harris County able to do with this group in his first season, and now all the young talent that's going to be coming up here in the next few years, the Tigers are going to be reckoned with for a long time. I think it was a pretty good first year, especially the way it started for Coach Tony Dimitri. They come in at number 8.
Yeah, and this team is just only going to get better because look who's coming in the waves in the next couple of years. That Harris County Little League team.
Oh, Richards, he had to sneeze. He tried to hold it.
Yeah, but I put my microphone on mute, so you didn't hear it.
But we did see it. Harris County coming in number 8. Number 7, Howie Shackelford, 14-14. 9-3, though, in region play. They were another team that got off to a slow start. Had a 5-game winning streak at the end, lost to Callaway, and then lost in a 3-game series to Troup County, who we know how good Troup County is. They've won the first game 5-2, lost the next 2 7-2 and 7-0. But how about the Shaw Raiders and Coach Howie Shackelford? I think this is a really good season for them, and I think they come back next year. The Long Boys, the Twins, they're young. They're only freshmen or sophomores, excuse me.
Yeah, they're sophomores.
I like how talented this team is. And did they win the region this year?
No, they didn't win the region. I want to say that Bainbridge won the region.
They did, but they took 2 or 3 from Bainbridge.
They did, but they got to host a playoff
No,
game.
Cairo, excuse me, went 9-1. Yeah,
that's right. Cairo won the region. Shaw actually took 2 or 3 from Bainbridge. They finished second place, and they were able to host the first round back-to-back years. Unfortunately, lost to another school up in Troup County. Last year, they lost to LaGrange. They ended up losing to Troup County, actually at home. So they actually lost in the first round. They actually got to the second round last year, but this was back-to-back years where they got to host a home playoff game. And they're going to lose John Rowland and Nick Torres. I mean, they're senior leaders. They are the top 2 players for Coach Shackelford on the Shaw Raiders, but they will be graduating and leaving. So,
man, a great season for Shaw, and they're going to have to replace those guys, but I like the young talent that's on there for Coach Howie Shackelford. And I think, again, hosting a playoff series, that's a win in my book. Number 6, this team started 5-9, Richard. Got smoked 10-0 against Harris County. Got beat by Brookstone, and then had a 4-game losing streak to Thomasville, Noonan, and Woodward Academy. But then after that happened, Richard, they swept Crifts County, beat Northside, beat Monroe, and then they won against Academy of Richmond County, beat them on the road. Beat them at home. And then went on the road and played Mary Persons, lost 3-2 in heartbreaking fashion in game 1, won 1-0 in game 2, and had a game 3 if necessary, lost 10-4. But I told Coach Mathis, the fact that he struggled, this team could have quit, Richard. They got beat by Central Brookstone. They look like, especially with all the pressure, when you put on that Columbus High Blue Devil uniform, it's hard. And, when you're having a losing season like they were having, I could see them easily quitting. Like, you know what? We're not winning a state championship this year. Let's quit. That's not what this team did. That's not the mantra of Coach Mathis. I like what I saw. And the fact they made it to the second round, I know they got to replace some people, Richard, including some of their best players. But I think this team and Nodelman, Nodelman's only a sophomore. They lose Kate. But I'm looking this team up and down. He played a lot of sophomores and juniors. So Columbus I'll be reckoned with next year. And again, still made won a playoff series. I think Coach Chad Mathis did a great job. And expectations were to make a deep run, especially after making the Elite 8 last year. But the fact that they were able to overcome that bad stretch, I think this was a good season for Coach Mathis. They come in at number 6.
Yeah, they're going to lose seniors Jack Peak and Jack Brown, also Quintavious Fudge and Colin Cates, like you mentioned. But they do have some youngsters coming back, like Michael Nodelman. A big shout out to his father, who's a huge supporter of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And Michael Nodelman's only a sophomore. He's going to come back. And then you also look at William Randall should be coming back as well. And you also Caden Bryan. So the future is bright. I know there's a lot of pressure when you put on that red and blue. Columbus has got a history of winning state championships under the legendary coach Bobby Howard. I mean, Frank Thomas went to Columbus. I mean, we know this. I mean, we called several Georgia Alabama Sports Live games from Columbus High, and there's just a lot of pageantry, a lot of tradition, but they actually played very hard and took Mary Persons, one of the top teams in 3A, to 3 games. And so that's a win in my book for Coach Mathis and the Columbus Blue Devils.
I think the most impressive thing I saw this year, aside from our state championship winning teams, is what Coach Adam Thomas, Carson Bowers did for Pacelli. They may not have been the most talented team, but they went 21-8. They were number 3 team in the state. I know they lost to Strong Rock in that 3 game, and I did that game 3 in which they lost pretty handily. But I think they did a lot better than many people thought. And Walker Hilton was great. Omar Kimbrough. These guys are going to play at the next level. 21-8, make it to the Elite 8. Put me down as one of a great season for Coach Thomas. They come in at number 5. I would not have expected that at the beginning of the season. Number 4, Richard, and I'll let you talk about both these teams, is the Calvary Christian Knights. We talked to Steve Smith yesterday. He talked about it. They were about 500 for, a good portion of the season. And then, right there in that middle stretch, if they started 13-1, they went 500, and then they just started playing winning baseball. And that's what great teams do. That's what dynasties do. That's what dominant programs do. And when the lights were the brightest, people shined, like Bailey Thorne, like Carson Ward. 6-0 in the playoffs. Ended the Gaps era on a 34-game winning streak. Come on, Richard. That's unheard of. And I'm talking about in the playoffs. Okay. Regular season, it could probably be longer than that, but they ended on a 34-game winning streak in the playoffs. They have not lost a playoff game. And to go to the Kings Academy, we were there for that. Game 1, close, ended up winning because the bats got hot there in the 6th. And then Carson Ward with a 6-inning gem. And then to win 1-0. I was Steve Smith. This is one of his best coaching jobs. They come in at number 4. May not be his best team, but I think what this team was able to accomplish, he's got to be very proud of it. I know we are too. 6 straight state championships, and they finished number 4 in our rankings.
Their backs were against the wall. They were trailing against Rock Springs Christian in the semifinals. Played 2 close games against the Kings Academy. I mean, that was 4-3 going into the 7th, like Coach Smith mentioned on yesterday's show. And they ended up winning that first game 8-3, but that 1-0 gem by Carson Ward to seal it, because we know anything can happen in a game 3. And the Kings Academy, who came into this game, only lost 2 games all season long, or were a very talented team. They had the home field advantage, and Calvary was able to pull it out on the road in the semifinals and in the Gaps Championship.
Yes, they were. And we were glad to see them win another state championship. Number 3, the Glenwood Gators, 0-4 to 36-8. Richard, that's 36-4 to end the season. They went 1-1 against Brookstone, 1-1 against Calvary. They beat Heritage. They did get swept by First Presbyterian Day, but again, Coach Fanning was not scared to face any of these. They beat Terrell Academy, who won the 2A state championship, and the GIAA. They beat Brookstone and Calvary. That's 3 state champion teams they beat this year, Richard. Glenwood finishes out strong, and that incredible game series against Lee Scott came down to the wire and winning game 3 the way they did. Man. Coach Fanning, 10 state championships and back-to-back. First time he's gone back-to-back since that three-peat of 2009, 10, and 11. How about those Glenwood Gators? Another state championship, 24th in school history as they end their dominant run. We talk about dominant run for Calvary and Gaps. How about what Glenwood did? 24. They're the Yankees of the AISA. They got 24, and everybody else combined doesn't even have, 27 out of the 51 years they've been in the AISA. But the Gators come in at number 3. Wow, to what they were able to accomplish. They finished, again, nationally ranked and one of the top teams in Alabama.
What a way to close out the AISA. Now they go into the AHSAA, where I know that they're going to pick up right where they left off. I mean, it is going to be exciting, and they could call themselves champions to close out another chapter in the AISA.
Great job by the Glenwood Gators. They finished ranked top 40 And actually, they would have been a lot higher. They didn't put all their records on Max Preps. They were 44th, it says right now, and their record's 21-7. So if he put his entire schedule up there, they would have been a lot higher, probably top 20, top 15 for sure. Number 2, they came up just short in heartbreaking fashion to Bob Jones last week. We were keeping up with it. Lost in a 3-game series to them. I think this was still a great season for Coach Kehoe. Still one of the top teams in the country. It just came up short and ran out of gas. 41-5. They needed one more win to be state champions, Richard. But I know Coach Kehoe, he's pretty devastated along with the rest of the team. But what they were able to accomplish at Central this year is nothing short of spectacular. I just wish they would have got to cement it with a state championship. But they come in, and I couldn't drop them. I know Glenwood and Calvary both won state championships, but what Central did from all the way from start to finish, they were the number 1 team. I know they didn't win state. That's why it was hard for me to leave them number 1, even though probably you put them on a neutral field, Central probably could beat any team on there and probably is the best team talent-wise. I don't know. I say talent-wise. Those other guys are really talented too. I'm going to keep them at number 2 just because their body of work, Richard. And they had a great season.
Yeah, their body of work, and also the fact that they've been to 3 straight state championships and won it in 2022. They've got a great coaching staff. They've got great players. Landon Beaver. You have Hunter Whippert. I mean, they've got some incredible players. We got a chance to see Central on Georgia Alabama Sports Live when they were taking on LaGrange. I actually witnessed them take on Auburn in the semifinals, and the fan base just loves their Central Red Devils. That place was absolutely packed, and I know that they were supporting them up in Oxford and at Jacksonville State. And they were taking on Bob Jones, and they won an elimination game in Game 2, and they were able to get him to a Game 3. And so congratulations to Coach A.J. Kehoe and the Central Red Devils. I mean, a great season, and I know that they've got to be one of the favorites going in next season. I mean, this is really what they do, is make it to state championships, and they just continue being a very successful baseball program in Phoenix City in the Chattahoochee Valley.
Number 1 is the Brookstone Cougars. It was tough between them and Glenwood, but I just think Brookstone didn't have any point in the season in which they were playing bad baseball at all. And I think, I know they got 5 losses, but they were here or there. Maybe they had one stretch they lost 2 of 3 against 2 different teams. I think they were the most consistent team all year. And I would have had Central because I think they were also the epitome of that, but they didn't win a state championship. That's why we got Brookstone number 1. If you want to say that Central's number 1, I would have no problem with it. But Brookstone winning it gets the nod for me. Going undefeated in the playoffs, they go in at number 1. And we just talked with Coach Greg Mathis. It's a great job for them. Excuse me. And the Cougars winning a state championship. First time in 43 years. And they finished our ratings as a number 1 team. Great job by them.
We saw this Brookstone Cougars team 5 times on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I know you saw them 6 because you called that game 1 for GIAA.TV. Saw them twice in the Border Wars. We saw them beat Columbus. Taft Middleton ended up pitching a gym, and saw them beat Calvary Christian. This Brookstone Cougars team saw them beat Pacelli 18-1. That was when Madden Dismuke had like 7 RBIs. I mean, this team had no flaws. I mean, they had great pitching, great defense, timely hitting. And when they went through the playoffs, they didn't really get a pressure situation where they fell early in a game. They were able to go undefeated in the playoffs, and they're champions of the GIAA. So rightfully so, I believe the Brookstone Cougars should be number 1.
These are our ratings presented by Sports Visions. Make sure to tune in on Thursday with me and DJ Jones, 4 to 6 p.m. on 92.1 Smooth R&B and the Sports Visions Facebook page. Thank you to Steve Holman. Thank you to Greg Mathis. Great show. Glad that we got to hit Fanning, Mathis, and Steve Smith, all the state champion winning coaches. Look forward to talking to them in the summer. You know, we're going to have sitting down with the set of the program with the athletic directors, but then we're also going to be doing individual coaches and individual programs from each of these schools. And we look forward to talking to those guys real soon. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Enjoy the rest of your week. go watch some of the old games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Subscribe on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. And next week, we'll have a live show celebrating the year anniversary of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Look forward to doing that, Richard, with you. Should be a lot of fun at the Beck Center. Going to try to have on some guests if we can. But it's mainly about celebrating you, the follower, the audience, the listener, for allowing us to be in your lives and allowing us to be a part of your kids' lives and broadcasting games the way we did and talk about it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm glad that the baseball season ended just like the basketball season did and football season with some state champions and just a whirlwind of a year. And can't wait to talk about it and celebrate it on Tuesday. From Rich Holdridge, I'm Thrift Barringer saying have a good night, everyone. Watch the NBA playoffs. I know the Pacers and Celtics are playing right now. You got Timberwolves and Mavericks tomorrow. Buckle up. It's going to be a great series. And Braves fans, just take a deep breath. We'll see you later. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for watching the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. You're ready to smile.